So I have a book. I have a book for every occasion, but I'm not reading it to you today. So, but there's a book that's called My Backyard History Book, that as soon as I heard that the topic today was roots, I thought about this book because it's a really fabulous book with all kinds of ideas and activities of how we are part of history, how to look for history in our neighborhood. It's just, it's backyard history. And so from that book, I got an idea, and I tried it, and I want to encourage the rest of us to try it in the community. So in this book, it says, who are you today, and how are you going to remember who you are today? So here's a really easy idea, maybe to do once a year. Grab an envelope, not a very big one, right? Here's my envelope. And then walk around your house, your office, and think, what can I stick in the envelope that represents who I am today? And then I could write on the outside 2026, or I could write on the outside 62 years old. You could write on the outside 6 years old, or 42 years old, or 89 years old, or the year, and stick it in a shoebox. And then over time, you have your roots, right? Even if you don't remember it, to do it at, every year, or maybe you make it part of what you do on your birthday. But we have stuff on the refrigerator, right? We have stuff on our bulletin boards. We have stuff that collects on your desk or on your dresser top. So here, this is me right now, 62 years old. Too much information. Okay, so I put, the top of my desk was the favor from my niece's wedding that happened within the last 12 months. They gave out poppy seeds. So this just reminds me of my extended family, right? So I have Ashlyn's, the poppy seeds from her wedding. Our grown kids, who are young adults, gave me as a gift a whale watch. And this is how they gave it to me, right? It's a drawing of a whale. It's been on the refrigerator until I could turn in the coupon. We went on the whale watch yesterday, so I can take it off the fridge, stick it in the envelope. We have this past year had Anders, many of you have met him in our life, a little guy who was 2 and now is 3. And on our refrigerator, I have a piece of art by Anders. Here it is. And I don't honestly need to keep it on the fridge all the time. I can stick it in the envelope, and he'll do me another piece of art for me. I have a feather. So where I work at my school, for the past 3 years, a family of owls has nested in the tree behind my school library, and I can watch them raise their owlets. And my students, I'm telling you, it's the most amazing thing ever, and my students and I watch them grow, and the kids collect feathers as they molt, as the owlets, this year there are at least 2, are growing. They lose feathers, grow new ones. So I have a pretty healthy collection of owl feathers, and I thought I'd put one of those in that envelope. And then also at my work, right, because there's many parts of my life, my family, my home, my work, my husband. At my work, we have a big event where we bring an author, and everyone in the community comes back. And one thing we do is give these special bookmarks that we make new each year for the event. And so I just tucked one of those in so I would remember that. And then the last thing I have is a completely wacky thing, but it totally connects with roots. So my brothers and sisters and I have been cleaning out my parents' house, and my mom did such a good job of saving our childhood for us. Just file folders that we can go through. And she kept the letter. I was a kindergarten dropout. After 1 week of school, my mom took me out and said, no more kindergarten for her. And I barely remember it, except that I didn't get to use the toy kitchen. They had a really nice toy kitchen in Miss Pond's kindergarten, and she hadn't, and teachers know this, you don't open everything the first week of school for the kids. You have to set up rules and blah, blah, blah. We didn't get to play with it the first week. It was right there. It was so beautiful and tempting, and I never got to use it because my mom pulled me out of kindergarten. So the way she told me this story always was that she had a letter from Miss Pond saying, ooh, bad decision, Mrs. Visser. Your child will not be a success. she might be a failure in life because of this. Now, I have never seen the letter, but my mom saved it, and I found it. And here's Miss Pond's letter to my mom. It doesn't say I'm going to be a failure in life, but it does say, ooh, bad decision, Mrs. Visser. If you change your mind in October when you're tired of her, you can't send her back. So although this didn't happen this year. Finding it happened this year, and it totally reminds me of who I was when I was 5 years old. I think I did okay even without kindergarten, but maybe Ms. Pond would disagree, I don't know. So I'm gonna stick the things back and put it in a shoebox in the closet. There might even be a pair of shoes in the shoebox right now. And then next year, try to remember to do it again. And now I have an open space on my refrigerator for new art. I have the opportunity for my kids to give me a new coupon, because there's a space on the fridge. And I know who I was this year. So any of us can do this. I want you to think about how to remember who you are right now and see if you can put it away. We're going to sing the children out to their class now. Thank you.
I'm Mary Ellen Morgan, your sabbatical minister, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. Well, this has been quite a week, as they all are anymore. The news cycle is relentless, but there are 2 anniversaries of note this week. The first is that this is the 56th Earth Day that we have just passed yesterday, and our intrepid climate justice warriors are out there this morning oh, there they are. I see 2 of them in the back, those Hartzell Harrisons. But it's also the 200th anniversary of the founding of the American Unitarian Association. The Universalist Church of America was organized in 1793, and those 2 denominations merged in 1961. But I bring you greetings this morning from the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, the president of our association. She says, marking this anniversary, I reflected on our early liberal Christian history and was reminded that initially Unitarianism was an approach. Well, first it was an epitaph, but then it was an approach to liberal Christianity. The imaginations of early Unitarians, their dedication and their investment in the covenants that would sustain us over time turned a collective set of values, a method of engaging Scripture, an understanding of the personhood of Jesus, and the use of our own reason into a community of communities that together would elevate a liberal Christian love ethic into the very heart of the living tradition that we today freely hold in common cause. I think we forget sometimes the courage it must have taken our forebears to formally move away from the traditions that raised and sustained them to claim a new structure, one that would sustain and support congregations whose life-saving message of worthiness, of possibility, of a shared spiritual journey would authorize and invite all people of goodwill who would live their lives by a set of shared values to dream the world anew. And we, these are my words, are the ancestors of that proud tradition, the Unitarians who came out of our Puritan heritage, our liberal religious faith that was an answer to that strict Christianity, and we are the recipients of all of that. So will you join me in a moment of prayer and meditation as we reflect on all we have gained and gathered from those ancestors and all we take forward today. Spirit of life and love, we feel you among us here in this fellowship of love and goodwill in the way we support one another and encourage our spiritual deepening through the years by sharing our lives with one another. Be with us as we walk forward into the days ahead, for we know not what comes, and let us lean into the love and fellowship we have together. Please join me in a moment of meditation.
Roots hold me close, wings set me free. I love to sing, especially a hymn at church. For me, when I sing at church, I'm using my voice to pray. Many songs, including Spirit of Life, have lyrics that really touch my soul. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. These words appeal to me on an emotional level, and this week gave me the opportunity to reflect on what resonates in my heart with those phrases. What are our roots made up of? My husband Marcus and I had a great conversation about that this week. One thought that resonated with both of us is that our roots are the connections we make with others. The roots are planted in the soil of our communities and the environment that we grow up in. What feeds our roots has dark and light elements. We can be fed positively and be nourished by love, a sense of belonging, and the nurturing of our talents. We can be negatively affected by our communities or societies and our lived experience. Some examples in my own life are societal norms that don't fit who I am, the judgment of others, and facing loss and uncertainty. There are times in our lives when we are violently uprooted, and it is not our choice. That happened to me when my first husband was diagnosed with cancer and died 2.5 years later. I had been rooted in the soil of my marriage, and I had to explore new ways of rooting myself in partnership, exploring what I wanted my life to look like moving forward. In the beginning, I couldn't even find the ground. It took time, compassionate support, and a lot of personal growth to feel rooted again. Many of you have heard about parts of that journey here in my past reflections. I'm currently in a transition where I chose to uproot myself. In October, I left my job as the CEO of a healthcare nonprofit to explore what I wanted in this next phase of my professional life. I'm taking my time thinking about how the roots of my past and the ways that I was nourished have previously influenced my choices. I'm committed to making choices that are authentic to the person I am today, and not ones that came from society's ideas of success or what one should do. For example, I used to be able to answer the question about what I do for a living with the phrase, "I'm a CEO, ... I was rightfully proud that I had the leadership and experience to effectively oversee a healthcare organization. Today, it feels crunchy to not be working and contributing at that level. I have to remind myself that the value of my day and my happiness is not based on what is on my to-do list or what others' opinion of me is. I'm choosing to consciously untangle the roots and systems that were established unconsciously that might lead me to making a choice that's not right for who I am today, how I want to spend my time, what I want my life to look like. I'm looking to my values and spiritual beliefs as positive roots to guide me in how I choose to contribute next. I trust that the conversations and explorations that light me up, that give me that buzzy, excited feeling, are guiding me. That energized excitement is what is giving me wings. And trust that the right next thing will happen, even if it doesn't have an impressive title. Roots hold me close, feels like being wrapped up and held by the communities and people who love me, like UUFRC. Wings set me free. That feels like excitement, pleasant, buzzy energy, joyfully seeking what comes next. I'm grateful for both.
I'll start off by admitting I made a mistake. It says in your order of service that Carolyn McDade, who wrote this hymn, is a Unitarian Universalist. She is not. My apologies to Miss McDade. I start today with the words of John O'Donohue. Quote, "You are in this time of the interim. The path you took to get here has washed out. The way forward is still concealed from you. In this place of dusk, your eyes are blurred, and you can see nowhere to put your trust. As far as you can, hold your confidence. Do not allow confusion to squander this call, which is loosening your roots in false ground, that you may become free. From all you have outgrown, it is difficult and slow to become new." End quote. This is the reflection your board, staff, and committees have been working with all of this month. If you think about it, we're all in the time of the interim, individually and as a fellowship. Although the aim of the church is to maintain as much of the status quo as possible during a minister's sabbatical, Brian's 6 months away will have changed him and you. Who will you be as a fellowship will probably look much the same, but some milestones will have happened at that time. Some folks will move away, some members will have passed, and new members will have joined. I think it's important to keep this in mind as you move through the rest of this church year. What roots will you nurture, and which new ones will be sprouting? I've always loved the hymn "Spirit of Life." It was my late husband's favorite, and he always would tear up when he sang it. But I've always been comforted and disturbed by the line, "Roots hold me close, wings set me free." It's a dissonance I've lived with all my life. Never completely happy where I am, and when I'm away from home, longing to go back. But back to where and what? So I resonated with O'Donohue's thought that I and all of us are in this time of the interim, which, when you think about it, is our life's journey. We are always moving forward, even in those times when we seem to stand still. This is really hard to explain to young people, many of whom get restless to move on to something somewhere better and more exciting than that dumb town they grew up in. The town I was raised in seemed so provincial and too small for my ambitions. Chicago lay to the east by 40 miles and looked like the Emerald City to my young eyes. It took me a few years, but I finally moved there, and then when I was there, I longed to be back in the country. I felt as if I had a foot in both places. One was comfortable and familiar, the other was exciting and new. Where was I to land? My sister and I, for years, have scoffed at those people we grew up with who never left our town and were happy to stay right where they were. How could they not want more for their lives than the small minds and conservative politics we left behind? I've come to appreciate that they have a level of contentment I have only somewhat acquired, and I also understand that I have a great deal of privilege. I was able to leave because I had the opportunity to travel as a child, and knew that there were places I wanted to be a part of. I also had the means to make that happen by virtue of my education and my willingness to give up some of the things like having family nearby. There is always a cost, even though we may not recognize it at the time or admit that we're forfeiting something important to gain something else. Moving 10 times since childhood has taught me how to get rooted in a place more quickly. Find the stores, especially Trader Joe's. When I first took a job as our administrator at our Reno congregation, my husband came home one day and said, "We can live here, there's a Trader Joe's." You have to find the dry cleaners, a hairstylist, but most important for me, a church. Get involved, start making friends, learn about the area you've just decided to call home. Every one of these things sends down a root in that place. In my seminary class on nature and religion, we were asked to write a narrative map of the place we were living to describe in detail to our professor. The purpose was to think about the area so that we could minister more effectively within it. You are in the time of the interim. The assignment read, how does race, class, and the environment come together where you live? Study maps. Ask questions. Where does the trash go? Where are the factories and the industries located? Where do working class people live? Who are the activists? What reasons do the activists give for their work? Well, at this point, I'd lived in Vallejo for 10 years, and although I knew much about the town from my own study and from the stories my mother-in-law told, who had spent her high school years and early marriage there, there was still a lot I didn't know. Through this assignment, I was able to not only look at the people who formed this place, but the natural surroundings that shaped them as well. Why did the first naval base on the West Coast end up on Mare Island? Why did it miss being the state capital? Why wasn't it a major city in Northern California? There was an article I saw that was published recently that speculated that Northern California what it would look like today if Vallejo had become the major city and San Francisco had stayed a small fishing village. And they posited that Vallejo was a better choice for it. My study and the neighbors who lived here all their lives have told me how this town was always poised to take off. But after the naval base closed, many missteps by the city government had kept it from moving forward. And I learned a lot by looking at detailed maps of the area. I have always loved maps. When I was a child, we used to take long vacations by car. My father always drove, my brother was the navigator, and my brother would say, "Oh my gosh, there's this fabulous place just off the road. Dad, turn here." And we stopped at every historical marker and then had to read and discuss it. But I love maps, but not the electronic ones we all use to navigate today. I'm excited by the prospects they offer as we travel. Give me a good AAA atlas so that I can not only see where I've been and where I am, but where I'm going. What else is located in the area? Is there a better route than the one I'm traveling? Is there a slower but more scenic one I'll miss flying through the area at 70 miles an hour? Or if you drive with me, 80. How can this apply to my life travels? But how do we map the heart and its longing for a place and the familiar? In his book, Prairie Earth, Native American author William Least Heat Moon decides to deeply investigate one county at the almost geographic center of the continental United States, Chase County, Kansas. He spends months walking the county, looking at its natural layout of the land, investigating how this place would have looked 150 to 200 years ago, why this place flourished, and why it subsequently died. He learned a lot by talking to the people who stayed, and as a Native American, diving into what those first inhabitants knew about this place. He talks about it as being a compass in the blood, which relegates its history and is of the spirit in what he calls our habitants. He says, we live on this continent without knowing what it is and where we are, end quote. And if we deeply understand the land we lived on, would we hold more reverence for it? Would we work harder to have a lighter footprint? Looking at our history, our ancestors thought that this abundant land was always a place to be conquered into submission. Our cavalier attitude towards its abundance and our belief that the natural resources were unlimited and ours for the taking have resulted in the ultimate climate crisis we face today. And I suggest that it's severed our connection to it and has us vaguely yearning for a place to really be. Least Heat Moon quotes Emerson in saying that the view a people held towards nature determines its institutions. But Least Heat Moon thinks that the opposite seems to be at work. The view people hold of their institutions determine nature. Let's sit with that statement for a minute. The view people hold of their institutions determine nature. Look around you. How is that true in Silicon Valley? There's an old Native American story. The white man asked, "Where is your nation?" The Native American man said, "My nation is the grass and the rocks and the four-leggeds and the six-leggeds and the belly wrigglers and the swimmers and the winds and all the things that grow and don't grow," end quote. The white man asked, "How big is it?" The Native American said, "My nation is where I am, and my people where they are, and the grandfathers and their grandfathers, and the grandmothers and all the stories told, and it is all the songs, and it's our dancing." The white man asked, "But how many people are there?" And the Native American man said, "That I do not know." So their rootedness is not in the people that are there now, but in the spirit of those that inhabited that place before, and in the animals and the land that live with them. That's their home. But what of the roots holding us close? I used to think that staying in one place limited me. Now I know that having that place with deep roots allows me the freedom to explore not only what is, but what could be. It gives me my sense of belonging, my personality, and my belief that we place a mark on the land and it on us. Where are your roots? I think you're all here because this is one of your roots, a place you know and are known. I believe that the loneliness epidemic is happening because we've not been taught how to nurture the roots that support and sustain us, nor are we taught that establishing them outside of our place of work is important. In my time, my own perspective has changed about being in one place for a number of years. At this point, I've lived in Vallejo for 15 years, and there are many things I still don't know about my adopted home. I feel more rooted there. I have found a freedom in that. I choose to be there, to become a part of its history, and to let it become part of my story. I'll spend time later today planting my first garden in almost 10 years. I had a wonderful time at my local nursery yesterday. It was great to be there on Earth Day. I bought herbs and lettuce and 4 tomato plants. I went for 2. I came home with 4, but it wasn't the 23 I planted years ago. Every time I reached for more, I remembered that garden with all those plants years ago. It'll feel good to get my hands in the soil again, and I'll plant hope and rootedness with all those vegetables. May you find your roots and let them hold you close, and allow your wings to set you free wherever you may be, here or in a new home somewhere else. To the glory of life and the earth.